Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Andreas as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. This is from an act named Sandrayati titled Smoke. Apparently is the live take, so we're going to listen through it from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go.
There was rain that fell
Lyrics. Wow.
for the first time in a long time.
Interesting attack on those guitar notes.
People from all over came together. And the wind sang as they gathered, their voices like thunder they offered. And these elements
Great transition to head voice.
are the dances of the loved ones we've never met. They are here now as they've always been. We will sing to them again, 'cause we're remembering. We're remembering. Oh, the skin, it has pigment of different tone.
It's just these little bits of varying inflection with the voice, the way we're trying to sort of alter the characterization of ourselves as a singer within this. It's kind of,
What would music be without harmony? Oh, we need all of these ways to be. It's not make-believe. It's not even believing. It's just seeing things as they are. I don't know anything, but I'm seeing all the bridges yet to be built.
and having the vocals just as an instrument in this rather than a storytelling device is very effective. A lot of the other elements in the mix are quite soft, like the cellos or the guitars. Woodwinds. They kind of sound like smoke emanating through a forest or something like that. But pretty smoke.
Most times there are things easier not to see, and so we don't. Take me, oh truth, do with me as you please. I am smoke that sees clearly. We are smoke, seeing clearly.
Phenomenal studio production there. It's just fantastic to have the voice so quiet in the mix. It's almost ASMR-ish. You can hear that those kind of sounds there. It's wonderful in regards to the studio production for sure, but there's a lot of other components that I really appreciate, and we're going to talk about that more in the conclusion. And welcome to, the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Sandrayati, titled Smoke, the live take as I understand it, or live. It could be either. We're going to go with live. I think that the song is about someone who is trying to sort of ascribe themselves to the concept of smoke, kind of letting you know there's a bit of danger involved. It's the kind of thing that's sort of like maybe the smoke is trying to clear itself to be part of the truth, to be able to sort of, the smoke is rising, it can see possibilities for people to come together, and that it can't be music without harmony. I think that's trying to sort of like communicate that we can't be humans without the wide variety of things within us, you know, that make us different, and the way that they all come together, for better or worse. That's part of humanity there. There's a little bit of poetry going on here, there's a little bit of figurative language going on here to kind of subtly infer their own philosophies within their music, done in a very artistic way, and I appreciate the effort put into that regard. I think the story makes sense, and even if you take it at face value, it's still enjoyable to listen to. The focal point of this track was the vocals from Sandrayati, and they're a great singer. I'm really satisfied with the way that they carried themselves and orchestrated things here. Clearly we have a musician who is very comfortable with the way they express themselves on a microphone. There's absolutely no issues with the way that they sort of talk to the audience, they express themselves. They're very comfortable with their vocal technique, you know, the head chest voice, and a little bit of sort of like higher range stuff, almost sort of falsetto equivalent, as a more of an instrumental thing rather than a storytelling device. And I think it's really special because there's like an effort to hold some notes for longer, to have like legato-ish kind of whole tone runs there. Some notes, some words are shorter because we're putting certain emphasis on them, like don't, you know, like there's like a bit of oomph to that, a little bit of sort of pizzazz to that, a little bit of sparkle to it. It's clearly someone who understands the power of their own way that they communicate with the audience and the power of being able to do that well. So we have a person who's a really good singer, and they told a really cool story, because I think this is my first time, if I'm not mistaken, listening to Sandrayati, and I'm very impressed with what I've heard. But the track itself, 3 minutes 55, is a longer track. It's on the longer side of that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot that I have for most songs there. And I think that the way that we sort of niched it out with, I don't know if it was through composed. I think it was like one sort of main theme that was repeated quite a lot of times with different bits of sort of cello work, sort of guitar work. Like it grew over time. It was a concept that grew over time. I wouldn't necessarily call it through composed. But then, like, did it have verses and choruses? I think the most neutral way to sort of approach it is that we were telling a long form sort of story or short form story over a piece with backing music in it. You start with the guitars at the start, then the strings eventually, the cello comes in, and the sort of mid to high sort of violins and other instruments with the nat ridge come in. And like, it's not just that they're like in the side of the stereo field, so very subtle underneath or by the guitars. Things are nicely niche, not just in regards to the studio production, which was fantastic, but also in regards to where the notes are positioned within that frequency spectrum, just to allow ourselves to be able to sort of like hear everything clearly, even if it's meant to sort of be misty sounding or kind of subtle. I think that the music kind of the song develops with varying sort of intensities of instrumental layers there. We don't have any sort of harsh textures or anything within the way that the track was written. It's very palatable throughout. There's a great sense of wholesomeness and simultaneous heft to it from the power of the music. But if I talk about a few of the instruments I really appreciated, I think the first one was the guitar, because the guitar is relatively minimalist with the arpeggio that it's playing with the kind of vibrato tremolo that comes after it. It softens the attack of it to make it more soothing. I think that's a really beautiful sound that we have encouraged throughout that instrument alone, and it fills up the stereo field really nicely because of the way things are spread in the mix. But it's also, you know, again, the cellos, the sort of the burn of them, the sizzle of those is part of really why I really want to have a cello as an instrument in real life, because they've got a beautiful sound to them when they're played that expressively. And even if there's a few notes in there and not a massive amount of sort of range in there, I think that it suits well in that range. It's stacked really nicely underneath those guitars and just formed a nice ground bed as a replacement for like an electrical synth bass and something in a lot of other instruments. But then we had like violins and other instruments that kind of either overlapped or kind of went on top and kind of call and responded with it. They would highlight certain notes of the harmonies or play little shapes there, but nothing more. We didn't want to sort of overtake the focus of the focal point of the vocals and the track. I think the singing, storytelling was the main sort of thing that the composer wanted people to sort of like look at, and they succeeded within this. It was that we had a track there when you combine again the woodwinds occasionally as well. We had little sort of trills or flutters of those in the higher range later on there, niching nicely with a lot of the pre-established chords and arpeggios and all that. But nothing ever took away from the vocals in terms of focus. If I was to comment on the theme overall though, I think that it's a theme where like we clearly had an aesthetic in mind we wanted to sort of discuss something kind of somber and kind of important. There is a glimmer of seriousness within this, if that makes sense. Simultaneously, it's just so soft with the approach of most of the instruments, including a lack of harsh textures within the harmonies or chord progressions within the track, as well as the way things are played in a way where it's very kind of soft and almost sort of pianissimo at times, that it really just wants us to kindly and gently warm up to the concepts that Sandrayati is expressing within this, and I'm really satisfied with the way the theme was approached. I thought the main concept of it worked really well with what the singer was discussing, and ultimately I think in regards to the performance, I don't think there was a note out of place. But finally, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering, the production overall was sensational. I think that the way that Sandrayati's voice was recovered, the amount of dynamic range we had on the mic there, not trying to sort of make everything the same loudness. You know, you could hear like the quieter sounds and everything like that. It's very easy to sort of hear what was going on. But it's also just the fact that even though there were layers and sub-layers within the backing, everything felt kind of sort of nonetheless kind of glued and leveled, and like it had context and there was a connection. And it's just, you know, there were no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum because things were nicely niched there, and things were nice and wide in the stereo field, again like the cello and other instruments that flutter around the sides of the cans, so Sandrayati had plenty of space to sort of move around in the center. There were no overlapping issues, no irky bits. There was, again, dynamic range as I mentioned before, but it was still nonetheless nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled. And I think effectively, just as a closing comment, I think this is a sensational song. Sandrayati should be really proud of themselves. I thought that the subject matter was handled really exquisitely, and it's really positive for someone to be able to record this in a live situation and for it to sound so authentic with such a lack of sort of synthetic sort of like manipulation there. It just sounds like you had some musicians speaking their truth, and that's never a bad time. And they did it in a way that was really beautiful. But that's my review of this track from Smoke by Sandrayati. Smoke Live, should I say, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.